Hello and welcome to the Cancer Cured Me podcast. My name is Russell Peden. It's my pleasure to welcome you to this inaugural episode, what I am calling the Cancer Cured Me podcast. My name is Russell Peden. It's my pleasure to be your host on every episode of this podcast. We're just launching a brand new podcast where you will learn about people from all over the world who are winning their battles with cancer and getting cured, but more importantly, how their cancer journey cured them, changing their lives and the lives of others as a result. Once again, my name is Russell Peden, and over the course of this podcast, over the many episodes that are to come, I'm going to interview people like myself who've not only won their cancer journey and today are cancer-free, or healed, cured, whatever you want to call it, but also people who have had their cancer journey cure them and transfer their lives in positive ways and allow them to have an impact on the lives of others. I'm super excited. I've got lots of interviews lined up, people I want you to meet. You're also going to learn from experts in the cancer world, so to speak, especially the alternative cancer world. I'm not one of these people who bashes conventional therapy, although I know that there are other ways that you can cure or heal yourself from cancer without necessarily having to go the conventional therapy. I think conventional therapy certainly plays a role in cancer treatment, but the reality of it is hundreds and thousands of people are curing themselves of cancer every year without conventional therapy. And you can too if you're currently a person with cancer. So I'm excited about the future. Looking forward to having you subscribe and download the podcast and become a regular listener to the podcast. So much to share, so many people for you to meet, so many amazing stories and information and resources to help you learn how you can cure your own cancer, learn how you can be cured by your cancer like I was, and lots of other information. So super excited for that. With that said, let me introduce myself, give you a little about my background and why you should listen to this podcast today and going forward. Again, my name is Russell P. Today, I make my home in southeastern Virginia. Just got back from spending the last 2 years living in Mexico with my wife and my two younger kids. My wife and I have four amazing kids. My oldest, Alexandria, we call her Lexi. Number two is Isabella. We call her Bella. Number three is my son, Russell. He's the third. I'm a junior. And of course, my baby girl is my princess, Amelia. We call her Emmy. Yet Russell's the only one without a nickname because we think Russell's a perfect name, just like my name. We do call him RP3 sometimes. But anyway, so we lived in Mexico for the last 2 years because my wife and I wanted to expose our two children to new culture, a new lifestyle, and a whole new perspective. And not to mention, I've got a little bit of an affinity for Mexico, as you'll hear in just a second. But anyway, so we have four kids. We make a home today in southeastern Virginia. 2013, I was diagnosed with large B-cell non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, which is a very aggressive, very fast-growing blood cancer. But you have to fast forward to February of 2013. My wife and I noticed I had a small lump in my right breast armpit area, about the size of a ping pong ball, I think I would say. And I didn't pay much more attention to it. I thought it was just my body's way of saying, hey, you're going too fast. You need to slow down, maybe take a break, maybe do a 3-day juice fast to kind of reset your body, maybe a week juice fast. That's what we had always done. I always believed in just listening to your body. My wife and I never went to a traditional doctor. We primarily have always gone to a naturopath doctor. And they always say, hey, your body will let you know what's going on. Your body will let you know when you need to slow down. And I just thought this is my body's way of saying, hey, you're going too fast. Slow down, take a break, do a detox, get your body reset. Because we were at that time, we were running and gunning in our business. I had so much going. I had a big convention that was coming up, had a big trip that we had planned that summer, and just no time for anything except work. And honestly, I always say, nothing else would have got my attention except for cancer. That's how hard and fast we were going in our lives, especially myself. So my wife and I did a juice fast, did a 3-day juice fast. The mass was still there. Did a 7-day juice fast. The mass was still there. Did a 30-day juice fast. Felt fantastic, but still the mass was still there. And actually it felt like it was getting larger. My wife told me I needed to go to the doctor, do something about it. I told her we don't have time. We've got this big convention coming up. I said, I'll do another juice fast. So I did another juice fast and still the mass was still there, only getting bigger. Felt great, but just the mass wasn't getting any smaller. Promise her that after we got back from this big trip that we had planned to Cancun with our company, that I would go to the doctor. So Cancun came, and if you look at the picture of our family picture from Cancun that year, you could actually see through my shirt the size of this mass in my arm. It had gone from a ping pong to about the size of a good sized orange. So it's pretty noticeable. So we got back from Cancun. I went to the doctor. They wanted to do an ultrasound, which I agreed to. And after the ultrasound, they said, I think it's best that we do a biopsy because there's certainly something there. Not knowing anything about biopsies and anything at all about cancer, I said, okay. So I agreed to the biopsy, which means that they take a super long 10, 12-inch needle, insert it into the mass, the lump, if you will, to take a piece of it out, and then send that little piece of the mass or the tumor to be tested. So we had to wait for the results to come back. About a week or so later, I get a call back from the doctor to let me know that the test results had come back and it was positive for lymphoma. They weren't sure what kind of lymphoma, what stage it was, so they referred me to an oncologist. So, which is fine. So my wife and I went to go meet with the oncologist, primarily because we just want to know what type of cancer it was, what stage it was, because we'd already made up our mind that if it was cancer, we were not going to go the conventional route, because we had watched just a year or two earlier, watched my father-in-law die from the exact same cancer. He had non-Hodgkin lymphoma. He didn't have large B cell like I did. We watched him die, in our opinion, not from the cancer, but from the treatment. My father-in-law I think he was in his 70s when he got diagnosed. He had a lot more health problems. Had been diabetic his whole life. He'd had a bypass surgery on his heart. So he wasn't a 40-year-old man like I was. He was much older with some other things going on. So his health was a little different than mine. But he ended up he got diagnosed, and they immediately put him on a chemotherapy regimen. And for the next 5 months, they gave him chemotherapy every several weeks. In fact, that was in August of 2009. In December of 2009, they sent him home to tell him that there's nothing else they can do. They can't, in their right mind, give him any more chemo, and that he should go home and prepare himself and his family. He might make it to Christmas, maybe New Year's. So they gave him literally just weeks to live after sending him home after giving him chemotherapy for 5 months. And we literally watched my father-in-law die from the treatment, not from the cancer. And there's more to that. I'll make sure that story in more detail in another episode about what we did to help my father-in-law make it to Christmas, make it to New Year's, and make it for several more months as a result. But I'll share that story for another episode. But that's the way. So anyway, that's why we decided not to go the conventional route. So we ended up going to meet with the oncologist. She let us know what type of cancer I had, what stage it was, which was stage 2, in her opinion, non-Hodgkin's, large B cell non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Again, it was a very fast growing, very aggressive form of non-Hodgkin lymphoma. That's all we wanted to know. But true to form, this oncologist that we met with was ready to put me on the chemo conveyor belt. We went to meet with her on a Monday, and she told me that I could start treatment on Friday. She laid out this incredibly long treatment protocol of 18 months of this particular chemo regimen. I'd come to her office every 2 weeks for 18 months to receive this chemotherapy treatment. And if I did that for 18 months, most likely the cancer will be gone in 18 months, maybe 2 years at the most. I later found out that blood cancers like the one that I had, lymphoma, leukemias, do respond very well to chemotherapy. In fact, they're one of the few cancers, blood cancers, that do respond well to chemotherapy. Now, they wreak havoc on your body's internal organs, but it will cure the cancer. I later found out through my research. Anyway, we left that meeting with the oncologist, never went back. Well, I should say, I ended up going back 10 months later because I had to, but went on to move forward with the alternative cancer treatments that I had done research on, and immediately started a juice therapy. I was juicing 12, 13 glasses of fresh juice every day on a plant-based diet, which is what I thought I needed to do, because that's what all of the information that I could find out there in the alternative cancer world was saying, that you need to be on a plant-based diet. I lost 45 pounds in about a month, felt great, felt better than I'd felt in a long time. But the mass in my chest was not getting any smaller. That was the only, not having any specific blood work or blood markers. That was our only way, my wife and I, of telling how well the cancer was doing. In fact, this mass was only getting larger and larger. And so I did a ton of research, which led me to a phenomenal website called Chris Beat Cancer, which was put together by a gentleman by the name of Chris Wark. Reached out to him, actually went to go meet with him, and he referred me to his nutritionist, his clinical nutritionist, a guy by the name of Dr. Smothers, who I met with him, and he put me through a bunch of tests and gave me a bunch of information on detoxes and supplements and things like that. Took that stuff, did a bunch of detoxes, doing everything we could to beat this cancer. Still, this mass is not getting any smaller. It's getting larger. Also, I found out about an amazing gentleman, Dr. Nicholas Gonzalez, on Chris's website, Chris Beat Cancer. Dr. Gonzalez had been curing people of pancreatic cancer for over 20, 25 years at the time. And pancreatic cancer is a death sentence for most people. When they find out they have it, it's almost too late for them to do anything about it. But I did some research on Dr. Nicholas Gonzalez and the work he'd been doing, and decided this could be something for me. Contacted Dr. Gonzalez. And I got to be honest with you, he and his partner, Dr. Isaacs, informed me right away after reaching out to them that although they would probably take me as a patient, but they felt like they should at least let me know that the cancer protocol that I was on with the chemotherapy would most likely cure me of my cancer, not just palliatively, but actually it would be curative to my cancer. They knew I didn't want to do the chemo. They didn't want me to do the chemo, so they agreed to take me as a patient. Ended up working directly with Dr. Gonzalez's partner, Linda Isaacs, and Dr. Isaacs took me through the protocol, set me up on a specialized diet, and set me up on a treatment protocol of supplements and enzymes, a very high dose enzyme therapy. Did that for 3 months. Felt great. The unique part about it is the diet that they referred me to was a red meat, high fat diet, which is a complete opposite of what I had been on for the previous 6 months. But I was doing whatever I could. This guy has been curing people of cancer for over 25 years, pancreatic cancer at that. And so whatever they told me to do, I was going to do. So I did that, was on that protocol for about 90 days, came back for a follow-up visit. And at this point, the mass has gotten much larger, started interfering with the fluid flow to my arm. I had some severe lymphedema in my arm. Dr. Isaacs informed me that that could be the body's initial response to the enzyme therapy, and I should monitor it for another month or so. And when I went back home to monitor it, it wasn't getting any better. In fact, I started having a pain in my brachial nerve because I had to keep my arm elevated because of the size of the mass in my armpit chest area. I had incredible nerve pain in my brachial nerve. I didn't even know it was called a brachial nerve until I went to the emergency room. But anyway, long story short, I ended up having to go back to see the oncologist that I hadn't talked to or seen since that initial visit 10 months earlier. At this point, she told me that I had to have a different sort of chemotherapy, a more aggressive form of chemo. In fact, it was so aggressive and so strong that it could only be administered in the cancer ICU ward of our local hospital. I agreed to the treatment. She told me to leave her office, go straight to the hospital. They have a room waiting for me, and my wife should go home and get my clothes and my belongings, but I should go straight to the hospital so I could get started on this treatment protocol immediately. So we get to the hospital. I go upstairs to the cancer ICU ward. They've got a room ready for me. I lay down. They hook me up to all these diodes and all these machines. There's a camera in the room so they can monitor me 24 hours a day, because evidently one of the drugs in this chemotherapy cocktail they're going to give me, one of them could stop your heart, the other could stop your breathing, and the others could have other effects on you as well. So anyway, I decided to go through this. I get set up for the chemo. They give me one round of this chemotherapy after installing the venous port in my chest. And for the first time in almost a year, the mass in my chest had shrank. In fact, what had been a good size, grapefruit size mass in my armpit area was now about half the size and kind of soft and malleable, which is the first time it had felt like that in months. And so I decided to wait and do a second treatment. The pain had with my arm and my nerve pain had finally subsided. So after talking with Dr. Isaacs and talking with my naturopath, Dr. Prince, we'd agreed that maybe a second round of treatment would help as well, since we had such great results with the first round. And so for the summer of 2014, I did 6 of the required 8 rounds of the R-CHOP chemotherapy that was part of the National Institute of Health recommendation. If you have stage 2 or 3 non-Hodgkin large B-cell lymphoma, this is the protocol that you go through: 8 rounds of R-CHOP chemo, followed by a bone marrow transplant, followed by another more chemo and all of that. I decided, with the help of with Dr. Isaacs and my naturopath doctor, to be in control of my treatment and only do the number of chemotherapy rounds that were necessary for me to get rid of the mass in my chest. So after 6 rounds of chemo, September of 2014, I did a CT scan after every chemo treatment to see or how it was progressing. And after that, the last round of chemo, number 6, essentially the mass in my chest was gone. Just a little bit of scar tissue left, but it was gone. There was nothing there to fill. And we thought we had licked it. We thought we had beat cancer and celebrated, took my daughters on a cruise. My wife couldn't go because she was pregnant with my youngest daughter. And my little boy was too young. So we celebrated. We thought we'd beat cancer. Got back from the cruise, took my wife on a weekend getaway to Florida to visit some friends, and discovered that later on, after having issues getting out of the car and being really, really weak, that and having issues with my balance, we later found out that the cancer in the process had spread to my brain. Went back to meet with my oncologist, found out, did an MRI, which I'd never done before, did an MRI of my brain, found out I had 2 small tumors on the right side of my brain. And they wanted to do chemotherapy on my brain using a very well-known chemotherapy. I forget the name of it right now. Methotrexate, I think is what it's called. Anyway, I decided not. I didn't want to go that route because I knew what I could do with the chemo in my body. I could get it out with the help of my naturopath doctor, Dr. Prince, but I didn't know there was any way to flush my brain of the chemotherapy that they were putting in my brain. I wasn't sure if I would go blind or what would happen if they pumped this chemotherapy into my brain. But after much pleading from my wife and discussing it with the doctor, I agreed to have this surgery where they inserted a special medical device in my brain called an Almira, which allowed them to administer the chemotherapy, also at the same time be able to pull out cerebrospinal fluid to have it tested to see how it was going. So I had the surgery, had the first round of the brain chemo, had another MRI. There was 0 shrinkage and of the 2 tumors. They were both the exact same size and shape. So I was ready to quit and move on. I'd already found out at that point about a special hospital in Mexico called the Rubio Cancer Center that a good friend of mine who I'd known for 20 years had gone to after having stage 4 prostate cancer. He's actually one of my upcoming podcast interviews. You're going to get to hear his story personally from him. His name is Brooks Werkheiser. So I'd found out that Brooks had gone to Mexico and I heard about it. This is right about the time I discovered that I had the brain tumors. So I decided I was going to go to Mexico. But in the meantime, my wife convinced me, the oncologist convinced me to have the brain surgery and the brain chemo. So I agreed to one more round of the brain chemo, which I had, and I had another MRI, and again, 0 shrinkage. So I told my wife and the doctor that I was going to go to Mexico and get the treatment there with Dr. Rubio at the Rubio Cancer Center. So my oncologist thought I was nuts. She said, that stuff doesn't work. I said, no problem. I'll see you later. Never went back and finished the brain. I was supposed to have 12 weeks of the brain chemo, 24 rounds of this brain chemo in my brain. I did 2 and I left and called my friend Brooks, got the contact information for the Rubio Cancer Center, and ended up going to traveling to Rubio on New Year's Eve, 2014. I spent the next 49 days at the Rubio Cancer Center in Tijuana, Mexico, where Dr. Rubio and his team reversed my cancer in 7 weeks. In fact, when I arrived at the Rubio Clinic, Dr. Rubio took a scan of my brain, did a bunch of blood work. And the day I left, he showed me a picture of my brain scan of the day I got there 7 weeks earlier, and a picture of my brain of the scan I'd had just the day before on February 17th. I ended up leaving on the 18th of February, and the tumors had completely dissolved. No scar tissue, no nothing. They had just dissolved. They were gone. It was amazing. I still had a blood cancer, so I had to come back for a couple of follow-up visits after that. But after three months of follow-up visits, I came back and Dr. Rubio checked my blood, had me do another scan. He said, Russell, I can't find a cancer cell anywhere in your blood, and you had a blood cancer, your scans are still clear. As far as I'm concerned, you're cancer-free. Come back in 3 months, we'll check you out again. So I went back to Dr. Rubio for every 6 months for the next 5 years and literally paid him to tell me that I was cancer-free and my blood work was still perfect. So I've been cancer-free now for 8 years, thanks to Dr. Rubio. Thanks to God through Dr. Rubio. And the rest, as they say, is history. But as a result, I have referred dozens and dozens of people to the Rubio Cancer Center, all of them having similar results, all of them coming back, leaving the clinic cancer-free. Now, we've had a few people who waited to the very, very, very last minute to go. And obviously, Dr. Rubio is not a miracle worker. So in those cases, they didn't make it. But almost every person that we referred to the Rubio Cancer Center has had amazing results, just like I did. So that's my story. You'll continue to hear more about my story as the weeks and months go on, as I share more and more details about my journey, the resources I found in my journey, other people that I interviewed who also gone to Rubio and things like that. So I hope this information was interesting to you. I hope that you enjoyed my story and are looking forward to learning more about not how you can beat your own cancer, but how cancer can cure you and how cancer has cured me and how it's cured many of my friends and other folks that I've met along my journey. So thanks so much for listening. Remember to subscribe, share this episode with your friends and your family if you think it'll be beneficial to them. And we look forward to talking to you on the next episode of the Cancer Cured Me podcast. Goodbye.